I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On Thursday night, the USMNT lost 2-1 to Panama in their second group stage match of the Copa America. Tim Weah received a red card in the 18th minute, which meant the U.S. had to play with 10 men for the remainder of the match. Folarin Balogun scored 4 minutes later to give the U.S. a 1-0 lead, but then Panama came back with goals in the 26th and 83rd minute to win the match. On today's show, we're going to do a full breakdown of the game as well as look ahead to the USMNT's final group stage match against Uruguay on Monday night. And to help me do that, Chuck Booth is back on the show. Chuck is a soccer writer at CBS Sports. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Wish you were here under better circumstances, but the show must go on.
Yeah, well, you were smiling when you came on the call, but then you told me it was only to hide the pain, which I totally understand. Well, Chuck, we have a lot to break down in this match, of course, but let's start by getting, what was your biggest takeaway, from watching the match?
I think you can't really go biggest takeaway without starting with Tim Weah, unfortunately. I don't know what got into his head that he thought that basically shoving someone in the face was going to be something that he got away with. And similarly to Serginho Dest against Trinidad, he just let the entire team down and is going to have to work back from that. Unfortunately here, the stakes are a whole lot higher for where he got that red card. And now we're looking at a situation where even if the United States does defeat Uruguay, there's still a good chance that Panama passed them on goal difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the really kind of stunning thing is even a win against Uruguay, which that in itself is going to be a huge task just to get a win against Uruguay. But even a win against them doesn't guarantee the U.S. Goes through at all because of that Panama-Bolivia match. The Tim Weah red card it seems so out of character. If you had told me before the match a U.S. player is going to get a red card and I had to place a bet on who it would be, Weah would have been one of the last guys I would have bet on. Did you see the same?
Pretty collected at all times, and then I'm sure Panama was just trying to find everything they could to get in everyone's heads, and whatever they did to him worked.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost wonder if, and who, I'm completely speculating here, but was he trying to hit the guy in the back of the head, or was he just trying to push him away and his hand just got up there? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but it just seems so out of character.
I definitely assume that it was an attempted push that hit the wrong location, but it's just you still can't even take that risk, especially that early in a game that you're at that point. The U.S. was dominating. They had the McKinney goal called back, but leading all the possession stats, and it seems okay, this was going to be what we expected to be with Panama puts up a fight, but eventually the United States finds their goals and wins the match.
Yeah. Yeah. Did do a little research on, Tim Weah's red card history, and this was the second red card in his career. The first one was when he was with Lille in 2022, and I just read really briefly that was for a rough challenge, so it wasn't for a fight or anything like that. It was just some kind of a rough challenge. But anyway, that's where the U.S. found itself shortly into the match. What did you think about Greg Berhalter's tactics and the way they changed it up once
Yeah.
going down to 10 men.
So it's kind of funny because remember in the preview when we were talking about center backs and how any center back that's not the starting two of Chris Richards and Tim Ream is not to be trusted. The sigh that I let out at home when Cameron Carter-Vickers came on the pitch at halftime and then got lucky to not concede a penalty and then still found a way to lose his man. Like in a sense, I get that Greg Berhalter wanted to shift to a different style of formation because like what they were doing in the first half wasn't really sustainable. Like none of the midfield was touching the ball. Balogun had to be like literally everywhere, probably putting in the biggest defensive shift that I've ever seen him put in for the United States. But shifting to the back three the way that it was done, while they did still create some attacking chances, like I don't consider that was just like going to bunker the way that most people are kind of chalking it up as. Like, but at a certain point, you do have to just like recognize that some of your players aren't good enough. And Cameron Carter-Vickers is one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand. This is two shaky performances in a row, right? I mean, he came on in, what was it, the match against Colombia where they kind of completely fell apart at the end and gave up, all those goals. And now this one, he was starting. When I go back even farther, he was starting a couple matches, for the U.S. and seemed to be putting in, I thought, like decent performances. And now you're like, what's happened, and I don't know if Berhalter's going to put him out there again because he did look, so shaky. But you kind of thought, I guess for you, what you were saying is you think it's even farther back than two matches that you haven't liked his performance. Is that
it's just like the style of center back that he is. Like if it's just a physical battle where you don't need to deal with pace, like he can be fine, but he hasn't shown enough for me that he should actually be like one of the center backs on like the A roster. Like I'm fine with him at a Gold Cup. I know part of the problem is like just not enough center backs in general have shown that they belong on the A roster. But like at that point, like we've already seen Berhalter do things like roll out weird back threes that include like Weston McKennie at wingback. So even if you have to do something like that where you're really going more possession based, possession against Panama is fine.
Yeah. Let's go back to the red card a little bit. Do you think, how would you compare this red card to Serginho Dest's red card, in the Trinidad and Tobago game? Because he got absolutely blasted, by everybody as like that was one of the most boneheaded
almost
things
the same thing.
Is this one from Weah worst?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say it was like completely worse, just because like Des was like already on a yellow and then just decides to kick the ball away. So that's even just like an extra level of thought because you had to get the first yellow and then get the second one. But when it comes to the stakes of the actual card and what had happened in the game, this one's certainly worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is this red card, it's not just that they lost this match, because of it. It's they could get knocked out of the entire tournament because of it. And then it's not even just that they can get knocked out of the tournament. It's that this Copa America was going to be the big test for this U.S. men's national team. It was going to be the best competition they were going to play in ahead of the World Cup. And now I'm like, are they even going to, as crazy as it sounds, I'm like, are they even going to have a match where they get tested in that highest level that you want to? And, I'm thinking like a knockout round match against an elite opponent. So they might not even get there. But then even this Uruguay match, I know Uruguay hasn't clinched first place in the group, but more or less they have with their goal differential. I don't know. It's not this match against Uruguay. It's a lot more important for us than it is for them. And so let's say that we do get the win, but we still miss out on the knockout rounds. Could you say that we went through this entire Copa America without even one huge challenging match that ultimately tested this team?
I would say it depends on what lineup Uruguay rolls out there. Like if they still play their starters, I don't see why it won't test this team, just because of the fact that like Marcelo Bielsa does not slow down for anyone. Like even the fact that they were already handily through and up 3-0 and then still went on to score 2 more goals against Bolivia shows like kind of everything you need to know about how he feels about throwing a game. But kind of the annoying thing here is the way that Uruguay plays. Your biggest threat in attack was Weah. So
because of like a counterattack,
because like
transition,
hitting them in transition is always where the breakdowns are, and he's usually someone, while his decision making isn't always the best when he has the ball in the attacking third, he's that player that you never know what they're going to do. So like Uruguay's defenders wouldn't be able to truly game plan for him. And if it's Brendan Aronson or Gio Reyna on that wing, like it's just not the same, and is going to rely a lot more on steady buildups, which with Uruguay's press, it's like, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to talk about this Uruguay match, kind of like preview it, talk about what they're all about a little bit later. Let me just ask you a few more questions, though, about this Panama match. I know it's really hard to judge player performances, when you go a man down, because everything changes so much. But is there any player that stood out to you that put in like a positive performance that you could highlight?
Easily Balogun. I think this felt like his best overall performance in a USMNT shirt.
100% agree.
I mean, not only just starting out with the fact that you get a red card, and not only that he scores a goal, but he scores a goal like that, hitting it off of the inside of the post, making something out of nothing there when the team needed it most. And like, unfortunately, they only held that lead for 4 minutes, but like, it's not his fault that they only held that lead for 4 minutes. And he still did everything he could and then some defensively, and where the only reason that he's subbed out of the game for Ricardo Pepi is because he literally ran into the ground trying to do everything that he could in the 70-ish minutes that he played.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of a breakout performance for him. There was the Golazo that he scored, which was incredible. But then there was just a personality to him I noticed more on the pitch, and an energy to him I noticed more than in previous performances. He was, arguing with the refs. He was in the face of some Panama players when they were fouling him. He looked like pissed off. He just looked like a guy out there like fighting like really hard and doing everything he could. And I just was watching the game thinking, wow, this is definitely his best performance in a USMNT shirt, but like I also think it could be a turning point for him. I just saw a different personality and like a different attitude and just a different way of playing from him. And so I 100% agree. This was like the one positive, and it's a really big positive, is that Balogun put in this performance, and I think it's going to be potentially, lead to a turning point, even more better performances, down the road. At least I hope
Yeah,
so.
because I mean, for essentially the future of the national team, we need that Balogun because that's what can actually raise the ceiling of this team.
Yeah. Yeah, getting him going is so important for the future of this team. Well, let's talk a little bit about Uruguay, and I guess I just want to start by just reviewing some notes on what the U.S. is going to have to do against Uruguay to move on to the knockout round. So right now, Group C has Uruguay with 6 points, U.S. with 3 points, Panama with 3 points, and goal differential for the U.S. is +1. Goal differential for Panama is -1. So they do have the edge there right now. That will be the tiebreaker, first tiebreaker, if the U.S. and Panama tie on points is goal differential. So basically, the U.S. is going to have to like match Panama's result or do better. If Panama ties, then the U.S. can tie, but if Panama wins, the U.S. has to win, and they have to keep this goal differential, this +2 goal differential, kind of.
Yeah, because the next tiebreaker is head-to-head, so Panama's going through if they're level.
Yeah. Well, I think it's goal differential, then it's total goal scored, then it's head to head.
Yeah, actually. So
Yeah. I have it up here. It's highest amount of points won among the teams, then higher goal difference, then highest number of goals scored, then head to head.
gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I did forget that one was in the middle. I mean, unfortunately, it still doesn't. Well, actually, it does. That does help, just because they can't. Well, actually, no, because if they score the same, if Panama actually ties on goal difference, they're gonna have to score more goals than the United States.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's not looking good for, because what you have is essentially Panama playing the worst team, the U.S. playing the best team, and it's very likely Panama's going to get a greater goal difference. I mean, I put together just a couple of example results that would get the U.S. through. So, like if the U.S. wins 1-0 and Panama wins 2-0, the U.S. still goes through. But if the U.S. wins 1-0, Panama wins 3-0, now Panama's going through. So you could see that's not again, the U.S. having to win. That in itself is a huge task that the U.S. has in front of them. I mean, so just getting a 1-0 win like that would be huge. But you could see Panama winning 3-0 against Bolivia. That wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I think they're a far superior opponent to Bolivia.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if Bolivia finally scores a goal either. Like it is good. It is going to be a fascinating match. Because like at times, like Bolivia's bad, but they have created some chances and tried things in attack, both against the U.S. and against Uruguay. Like they were even trying chips from midfield because they caught Uruguay out, and if one of those flies a little differently, they do snag a goal. So there will be that chance with the fact that Panama knows that they need goals, that they could be vulnerable on the counter. expect Panama to score more goals than the United States and end up being the team that goes through at this point. But stranger things have happened, and what's more annoying about this result is the fact that this is not even the best version of this Panama team. Also, they don't have Carrasquilla in this game against Bolivia because he is also suspended because there was just the insane finish to the game of him like when Weah's challenge was bad. I think Carrasquilla's challenge was worse because the game's already won. You're set up in a position to move on, and then you just cut down Christian Pulisic at the open field with no real chance of the United States scoring a goal from that.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, he took a full swing at him too. That wasn't just like a trip. I mean, that was bad. It's a good point. I mean, Karski is one of their best players, right? And so they're going to be without him in this Bolivia match. They're going to be feeling the pressure of having to not only win, but they'll be kind of watching what's happening in the U.S. Uruguay game, but they're going to, I think, going in kind of have some pressure that they need to win, and they need to win by a couple of goals. And so you're right. Stranger things have happened. I'm not ruling it out, but it's just I think we're just in a real precarious position right now, and it's super unfortunate.
It's certainly not where you want to be right now. The thing is the United States had a chance to have this Uruguay game be meaningless for both of them, and they could basically play a friendly, and now it's not.
Yeah. Let's talk. What do you think? So Weah is not going to be. He's suspended, obviously. What do you think Berhalter's plan should be to replace him in the starting lineup and set up this U.S. team against Uruguay?
Oh man, it's a tough one because I feel like it's not even just him that you're replacing in the starting lineup, because I don't feel like, based on what we've seen so far in Copa America, and I unfortunately don't think that Greg Berhalter is going to do this, but I don't think you can start Tyler Adams in that game. He's been pulled at half in 2 straight games. Uruguay is going to be a game where you have to run. And if he's not able to do that, then he can't start. And based on what you need in that game with just progression from deep, I kind of almost feel like you should start Yunus Musa at the 6 as opposed to Johnny Cardoso. Just because when Musa gets the ball deep, along with Reina, he's basically one of the U.S.'s best dribblers in tight situations. I know that the Gio Reyna deeper midfield role is something that's dividing people, and it didn't really work out against Panama, but it's also not Gio Reyna's fault that it didn't work out when the team just didn't have possession. But I think you probably still need to keep him in that deeper role against Uruguay, just to make sure that there's players who are comfortable moving the ball up the field, and put Brendan Aronson on the wing, even if that may not be your actual best 11 right now.
Yeah. That's going to be the decision to me, right? Is what do you do with Reina? Do you move him out to the right wing, or do you keep him in midfield? I think Moose is coming in. No doubt about that one. I think Moose is coming into the midfield. And I'm not sure. I don't know what the right answer is. You could keep Reina there, and then you'd have Reina, McKennie, and Musa. Because I agree with you about Tyler Adams. I mean, you can't start a guy that that you're going to have to pull at halftime or even at 60 minutes. I fully agree with you. So then if you leave Reina there, who do you put on the right wing? Do you move Pulisic over and then put Haji right on the left wing? What would you do there if you don't move Reina over to the right
that's
wing?
where I would start Brendan Aronson, because
Okay.
I like Haji Wright a lot more coming off the bench than actually starting, because he's shown the ability to be able to change games against tired legs, and you're still gonna need that against Uruguay, especially if things aren't working in the first half. Like, one of your next moves is basically going to be tossing on an extra forward in Haji Wright. And you have the flexibility, too, of being able to move Brendan Aronson deeper, since he, like Reina, can play on the wing or in deeper midfield positions.
Yeah. And he's going to work. He's gonna work his tail off out there. And so yeah, that won't be surprising to me either. But it's going to be real interesting when we see this lineup come out. Well, Chuck, thanks so much for being on the show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at ChuckBooSport, and also to your work at CBS Sports. Any final thoughts you'd like to share before I let you go?
Yes. I honestly, I'm blanking here.
You're lost. A lot of people are feeling lost of words after this game last night. So no fault to you there at all. Thanks again for joining, Chuck.
All right, thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a fellow USMNT fan. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back with a new episode after the Uruguay match. See you then.